So why do these problems exist? Why is this happening? Well, a nice way to tell the story is to first of all say, we're building the wrong mix of housing types. We're building too many single-family homes in what planners called green fields. The rest of us call it farmers' fields. The farmers that are growing the food that we need to eat so that we don't have to import food from other countries like the United States that may, we're building suburban housing there, or we're building these really tall towers that are filled with units that are shoebox sized, that are great for investors, maybe good for a young single person who spends most of their time out, but they're terrible for couples and families. And we're not building enough of what's often called missing middle housing. These places like my laneway house. There is so much capacity for building laneway house. Just a little aside, somebody did a study using GIS tools and concluded that if the number of places you could build laneway houses in southern Ontario, if just 1 in 10 of those properties built laneway houses, you would have something like 250 or 300,000 new homes. Right? So there's this huge capacity. We're not building mid-rise buildings like the one on the bottom right. That's an 8-story building. And we're not building, that's actually a picture of a housing co-op in St. Lawrence Market, if you know where that is in Toronto. And we're building in the wrong places. We're building in precious farmland and natural areas that are being destroyed. And as I was alluding to before, think about the implications of this, especially now, given what's happening with the United States. It's by building this, we're destroying, reducing food security. Makes absolutely no sense. And it's also making us more vulnerable to the climate crisis and increasing costs. Every time we pave over and destroy natural areas, we're not just destroying something that's empty, which I think the Premier at one point actually said that, oh yeah, there's nothing there. No, there are very, very complex ecological systems that provide huge number of free services to us. They clean our water, they provide flood protection, they provide habitat for a whole bunch of different animals and insects and whatever that are absolutely crucial to food development. So building in the wrong places has huge, huge consequences. And when we do that, we're destroying the very ecological services that are going to become increasingly more important as the climate crisis worsens. And we're no longer building non-market affordable housing. Now, non-market housing is a fancy way of saying homes that charge rent that's significantly below market rent. As some of you will remember, in the 1960s and all the way to the early 1990s, governments actually financed the construction of tens of thousands of non-market homes every year. The government would give money to housing cooperatives, to non-profit housing providers, and they would then hire on construction firms. They would build the units, and then these co-op housing boards would then run it, or non-market housing providers would run it, and it was stable. And because they were not for profit, they could charge less rent. And in some instances, they also got subsidies from the federal and provincial governments to provide what are called rent geared to income units. Those are for people who literally had, were at the margin. That used to happen all the time. And in fact, that's still the norm in countries in Europe. I always talk about Vienna, Austria. Vienna, Austria is kind of the showcase of a city that had got it right. the government has been actively involved in building non-market housing for over 100 years. They also have a very vibrant private housing market, and they have found a way of coexisting. We stopped doing that in the 1990s for a whole bunch of reasons. And as a result of that, or I should say the assumption was, well, governments don't need to do this, the private sector is going to do it. Well, the private sector became really good at building these tall towers with shoebox-sized condo units. They weren't good at building non-market housing, and guess why? Because they're for-profit corporations. And it became clear that when they said, well, we're going to build something, we're building it to make a profit, and we're going to do our best to maximize that profit. Perfectly reasonable to limits, or to certain limits, right? And so no big surprise, no non-market housing got built. Now, in November of 2024, we issued a report card that looked at what the province has been doing on the housing front for the last 2+ years. And no big surprise, we kind of organized this in three kind of general areas. And we said to make homes affordable, the province must first build affordable homes in towns and cities, not on farmland. And what the province actually did, they prioritized expensive single-family homes on farmland, natural areas in the Greenbelt. That's what the laws do. And they removed municipal power to stop sprawl. They eliminated something called the Growth Plan, which was first introduced in 2005, which was both a carrot and a stick for municipalities to do what's called infill. The next thing that we looked at was to make homes affordable, the province must build a wide variety of housing types, not more single-family homes and small condo units. What they did, they eliminated requirements to build missing mid-rise and other diverse housing types in towns and cities. They didn't stop it from happening, but what they did was they tilted the playing field to make it easy for developers to build sprawl and not very easy for developers to build missing mid-rise housing. And then the last thing we looked at was whether or not they invested heavily in non-market affordable housing. And what the province did, and again, I don't think this is any surprise to any of you, they failed to invest in helping housing providers, nonprofits, and co-ops to build much needed non-market housing. In short, the province is pushing the wrong type of housing in the wrong places at the wrong prices. The report is available at livableontario.ca. Go to the resources section, you'll find it there. There's about 6 or 7 pages. One of the key authors of that report was a very senior person who worked at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, a gentleman named Victor Doyle, who is also one of the architects of the Greenbelt, who knows this like the back of his hand. So, to sum up, we have provincial land use planning policies that are effectively today, once again, supporting a 1950s economic model for building homes that builds the wrong type of housing in the wrong places at the wrong prices. I mean, make no mistake, that's what's going on. There are a small number of very powerful developers in Ontario whose economic model is built on land speculation, where they buy farmers' fields, farmland, at very low prices because it's not zoned for housing. So they pay a farmer, whatever an acre, and then they hire lobbyists who lobby the municipal governments to get them to change the zoning from farm to housing. And when that happens, the land value shoots way up. Huge amount of increase in land value. And then at some point, they put suburban sprawl housing on it, which is designed to have a big footprint. Because if you want people to keep buying your service, land speculators want to keep selling, upzoning land. This is called upzoning when you put it from farming to residential. People have to use up land. The best way of using up land is by having big suburban homes. So that's the 1950s model. That's what these powerful developers use, and they're doing everything they can to maintain that model, to the point where they have convinced the premier and the provincial government to get rid of 25 years of at least land use planning laws that were moving us in the right direction and bringing us back to the 1950s. And of course, the climate change implications of that are horrendous. Now, I don't want to mention him, but we have to. You know, Trump's threatened new tariffs are going to make life much more expensive, and it's going to increase food security. Now, we have to remember that so does building the wrong type of housing in the wrong places at the wrong prices. They're self-reinforcing. And very briefly, I just want to touch on that. How? Well, by building the wrong type of housing in the wrong places at the wrong prices, it means that housing costs will go up. Said this before, the province is prioritizing expensive single-family homes and market-only rental apartments that fewer people will be able to afford. Food costs will go up because these expensive homes are going to go on farmland, and these subdivisions are going to go on farmland, and that's going to increase our reliance on expensive food imports and decrease our future food self-sufficiency. Your taxes are going to be wasted. The province wants to spend precious public dollars on new expensive roads, on sewers, water infrastructure that these new subdivisions are going to need. These are things that are going to raise taxes, and that means less public money is going to be available to help Ontarians deal with the Trump tariffs. And it's going to ultimately mean more people living on the streets and in overcrowded housing. Miriam was saying to me on our way back she picked me up from the Kitchener GO station, that, you know, there are now people living on the streets in Stratford. That didn't exist 10 years ago. I mean, I can't tell you how disturbing it is in Toronto now. And I mean, it's extremely disturbing for the people who are on the streets, but what's also disturbing is that I've now gotten used to it. Like, that shouldn't happen. That should not happen, but it has. Building the wrong type of housing in the wrong places at the wrong prices is only going to lead to more people living on the streets. And that has a huge number of consequences, physical consequences, mental health consequences across the board. And if you can still, you know, find a place, you're going to be in an overcrowded home. So, to kind of sum, if we want to minimize the impact of the Trump tariffs, if we want to protect farmland, if we want natural areas and the Greenbelt to be protected from costly and destructive suburban sprawl, we need to make sure the public is demanding the right actions from government. And if we want the next generation of Ontarians, our children, perhaps even our grandchildren, to have housing that is affordable and part of livable communities, we need to make sure the public is demanding the right actions from government. So we found 5 actions that will do both. And it's part of a campaign that we're calling Taking Action Together, 5 ways to make homes affordable in Ontario. And what I want to do is I want to show you a video. I'm hoping that this hasn't gone into sleep mode. So bear with me as we press this button and see what happens.
You probably know someone who can't find a home they can afford. It wasn't always like this. And while we can argue and debate about what happened and didn't happen, talking won't make affordable homes happen. So a bunch of us got together and found 5 ways that will. Number 1, gutting farmland and nature to build McMansions in places where you need 2 cars and have to install expensive infrastructure is not the answer. We need to build in the right places, affordable, livable neighborhoods where people already live and want to live. And we already have enough ready-to-build room inside our towns and cities to do it. Number 2, while everyone needs something different and affordable, too many of these are being built. We need to build a wide variety of housing types: low-rise, mid-rise, not-for-profit, multi-unit, multi-family, multi-bedroom. A multiplex of more affordable, appropriate options for every stage of life. Number 3, the way most homes are built and the laws around building them are not built for affordability or speed. We need to build smarter and faster, like more wood frame and prefab panel homes, and updating old rules, like high-rises needing parking for everyone. We can cut costs and time with faster and smarter rules, approvals, and building methods. Number 4, for decades, our governments built and operated affordable, non-market housing. Then, affordable housing stopped going up, but rents didn't. We need to invest heavily in non-market affordable housing. And we is our governments. Builders will build it, co-ops and other groups will run it, but our governments must invest in it, because almost no one else is. Number 5, we can't be hurrying like mad to approve and demolish and build without stopping to think about neighborhoods. We need to make housing not just affordable, but part of livable communities. Affordable means building in the right places, building smarter and faster, and building more choices and more non-market homes. While livable means building neighborhoods, close, convenient communities that bring everything we need together, including each other. These are our 5 ways to affordability. But there's actually one more. We need everyone, governments, the private sector, and nonprofit housing providers to work together to fix this. And we need you to tell your MPP that they've got 5 things to do to help everyone have an affordable, livable home now. Learn all that you can do at 5wayshome.ca.
So,